Yes, definitely. So we close it to the beginning, and that is very good feedback. I'm very glad to hear this. So that is not in vain or be above the head or something. I think we are kind of finding the intuitive language to speak about the functionality of consciousness. We are coming from one session to the other, and Dawn is here with Jen. From very interesting topic of this bridging science and spirituality, and viewing everything, all the elements of our life in the light of the consciousness we already have and the tools we possess, so to say. So if we have mental tools, we look at the world through through these glasses, yes, of the mental language, whatever we learned about it. And the amazing thing for me, and this is for Dawn and Jen from our previous course, amazing thing is that to each of these kind of stages in evolution, we have a particular set of instruments which are matching the need of that knowledge. It's amazing. If I think of it, it's like, wow, this is a complex creation. So if on the monocellular level of organism, there was this kind of, amoeba which was operating, moving, pushing, trying to see, trying to communicate, and organs were not there, it was exactly what it was needed for that moment. Now there is a different set of instruments. There are eyes, there are very complex retina, very complex hearing system with nerves and all this, mitochondria built over billions of years. This instrument is much more sophisticated and provides all the necessities for this consciousness to operate on this evolutionary stage. And when I think of it, I think, wow, this is a vision. That's what Sri Aurobindo teaches us, actually. So we will operate with the instruments given to us and try to figure out what it really means. There were, of course, some rishis from the past who had a vaster knowledge and greater perception, and they understood that they could speak about it in symbolic language only. If we take Vedic hymns, we would see that this is a symbolic language. And it makes sense. Today we had with the Russian group the hymn of Savitri to Soma and Surya, yes, the hymn of marriage. And it starts with an amazing statement, which is so intuitive and so profound. And that is Satyena uttabhita bhumih, Satyenottabhita bhumih, Suryenottabhita dyauh. So by Satya, by the truth, by that what is, the earth is being held. And by the Surya, by the supramental consciousness, the heaven is upheld. So by the supermind, the heaven means our mental operations, our mind, our higher faculties of consciousness are supported by the supermind. So the mind, the capacity to manifest everything in the world, to focus consciousness on any particular event and to look at it as such, this is the capacity of provided by our mental higher capacity, but by the truth, the earth is upheld. Everything what is here manifested in the physical form is upheld by the truth. And this is something to think of, yeah? It cannot be fake. Everything physical is true, held by the truth, supported by the truth. established in the truth of existence, because otherwise it would not come into being. And this is something to think of, though materialism is not scaring me at all anymore. It's not something against spirituality. Yeah? It is, in the Vedic vision, it is a part of the same vision, even higher. I would say that materialism in the highest sense is a true vision, actually. And consciousness operates within that existence. It is the faculty of existence, or intrinsic activity of the being, consciousness. We look at it as if it is something separate from existence, but it is not. It is intrinsic with it, and it is a part of it. And that's why we understand the physical being. That's why we understand with the means given a particular understanding we have from what we are operating with. So, and we build the world in accordance with that capacity of consciousness. It's amazing how it is all together coming in this integral paradigm. So today, I do not know how we should proceed. Today, Radhe will not be with us. She is busy with other project. And so we will be without her. So if you want to address certain topics, please. She was suggesting that we would rather go the way of kind of exploring things, looking into that, how we function, what toolbox of these faculties we have, and how consciousness operates, and what is the difference between hearing and seeing. Let me generate something interesting and kind of exploration. How would you define the difference between seeing and hearing? These are two major fundamental faculties, seeing and hearing. What is the difference? Let us start, whatever comes to your mind, from the organs, from the physical, from the vital, whatever, mental, psychological, linguistic, whatever the distinction you make, we will gather them together, put them together, and see the difference between these two major faculties of consciousness.
Is it the senses? Can we say it is the senses?
Yeah, well, we can say it is the senses, and they are the senses also.
In my experience, hearing is more spacious, it's more dispersed. Unless I'm trying, focusing on doing it. Otherwise, seeing tends to be more narrow, more focused, more.
Absolutely. Interesting, yeah. Seeing is more narrow focused when we look like the horses, they have this. This is the seeing. I see this, I don't see that. I don't see behind, I don't see outside. But hearing is more pervasive. I hear that the tractor is working outside. They are building the garden. I see there is a water dripping. I hear you from there, from another side of the globe. So I listen. Listening is more global. I hear what is behind me, what I don't see. And I see only what I see. Well, it is in the physical, but also in the mental, in the vital. Also, I choose where to focus my sight on. Very good. What else?
I have a perception that seeing is going outwards and hearing is going inwards. Like, for example, it's like almost, I see to process, but whatever I hear will trigger already something. I don't know if you can see that.
Very interesting. I would never arrive at this, but this is beautiful. Yeah, because seeing is the faculty which looks objectively, as it were, at things as they are. Not as I want them to be, but as such. So to know things as such, it's prajnana is that, yes, outgoing of apprehensive consciousness, to understand or to know it, not understand, to know it by analytic and synthetic cognition. So to analyze it as it is, to see how bits and pieces relate, not to really understand it, but to see it as such. And in that sense, it's more outgoing. Absolutely right.
I wonder if that is possibly not the fundamental nature of seeing and hearing, but the way we've been conditioned, because they've done all kinds of studies with classically trained musicians, of which I'm one, and that most people hear much more intuitively, that kind of field-like. Is that the musicians who are trained classically often hear in that very objective, because they learn about harmony and chords and forms and shapes. I personally found going to music school that it was a constant struggle not to succumb to that way of hearing, because you lose so much when you assign everything to analytic hearing. Dolores, you may have found that in medical school. The body suddenly becomes this thing that you divide into parts rather than this beautiful manifestation. I've also wondered, I couldn't think how to do it, because I was thinking, well, seeing, there's apparent forms and colors, right? It's a faculty of consciousness to perceive forms and colors. But I'm thinking, well, as a musician, I hear the colors of a trumpet of a flute. Those are different colors. I hear forms of music and things. So I'm not sure how I would say. It does seem like sound is spread out more, but if you shift your attention to open to the periphery, then vision can be field-like also. So I'm not sure.
You want to say something? Go ahead. Yeah, just talk.
Yeah, could you just a little bit adjust your microphone? Can you go to, because it's too high level. I do not know. You may put it very high level. If you go to audio setting in this in the right,
I don't know.
you know what I'm talking. And audio setting, just put it a little less, the level of microphone or something, because it's too high and it's already distorted. So we want to hear you properly.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Better.
Yeah?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
excellent. So for me, when you asked that question, where I went to was just playing on the science of consciousness, and that's that uncertainty principle. Like, is the atom a particle or is the atom a wave? Right? And the atom turns out to be whatever we think it is that it is, right? And that they never have been able, that I know of, been able to have those wave and particle occur simultaneously when they test for it. So light for me is particle, and sound and hearing is waveform, like percussion waves that are gravitational waves that are moving molecules. And where light is different in that regards. And so in this, what science can't get their head wrapped around is the atom, a particle, and a waveform simultaneously. But it looks like that's our dilemma. It's because it is, and we're consciousness. So it's like, what are we paying attention to kind of determines what we see and what we hear. And it seems like what we're paying attention to is that fine line between the difference in what's brain and what's mind. And the best definition of mind that I heard is what you said a few moments ago, which was that the mind focuses consciousness. I think that's brilliant. That sure answers a 40-year-old question that I've had. I like that a lot.
It is from from the Upanishads and from Sri Aurobindo, how he explains what is the major faculty of the mind is actually concentration of consciousness on the many. Yes, please go ahead. Who is talking?
So the other thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about vision and hearing is, I see through a filter, though. I mean, I see what happens is when I see something, my brain goes into this state of recognizing it based on what I've seen before. and so that I can understand it, so that I can, so seeing to me has more of a filtering, and maybe hearing does too, but I almost see what I want to see, or what makes sense to my brain. If I saw something that I've never seen before, how would that register? How would that?
Yeah, yeah. So you want to say that we see something which is already formed. Let us say we see the form. Simple. Yeah. And what do we hear then? Do we hear the form?
Vladimir, I was thinking when you said this that to me, seeing and hearing go integrally together, because when I see a bird just sitting on a tree and I'm trying to perceive this bird, it's one thing when the bird is silent, but when the bird starts chirping and singing, my perception is taken to another level. That's with animate objects, animals and birds. But when I look at a flower, I see the flower. I don't hear the flower. All I hear is silence. Maybe I need to go deeper to understand the flower, but my perception of living things around me, I need both seeing and hearing. So it's hard for me to tease things out. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, when you see the flower and you don't hear anything, you hear the silence, you still hear the silence. This is interesting. Something is going on simultaneously. Definitely, all these faculties are simultaneous. We need to deconstruct the senses. We are taking them easily for granted. We really do not know what they do. Yeah? We do not know the difference between seeing and hearing. And it looks like the same wave is in the light, in the same wave or similar wave is in the hearing, only different waves. One wave is a kind of photon wave particle. We do not know whether it is particle or wave or both or something else, but we can perceive on the spectrum like the wave in the infrared wave or infra blue wave or whatever. We could see the music also. It's totally true. And we can hear the form as a silence or as some kind of buzzing or something. So now we have to deconstruct this and see that in our seeing we can hear, in our hearing we can see, and what is the difference between the two? Because these are two fundamental approaches or fundamental faculties of consciousness which give us everything we have. Yeah? And the rest are following up. Yes, Jan, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something relative to what Dolores had said about sight being more bringing something in, going out and bringing it in. And what Don said about, is that the way it has to function? Because I remember I was in a workshop many years ago, and we had done a lot of body sensitivity things. And then we went outdoors, and the facilitator said, okay, when you look at, don't grab things with your eyes, let them come to you. And when I did that, it like changed my entire experience. It was like some sort of a momentary opening with this huge sense of presence and love.
Nice. Right. Well, this is the right. Well, this is amazing. Yeah, there's always something to discover how consciousness functions behind the faculties, because you can use these instruments in many ways, and still they will be of a particular kind. Yeah. So one is recognizing, according to the Upanishads, one is recognizing the form, other recognizes the name. And the name is the key. The name is the explanation of the form, which gives us a comprehensive cognition, which gives us understanding what this form can do, how it can be used. One thing is to see the tree or to see the bottle and not to realize that you can drink. And the other is to realize that you can drink from this bottle, the juice. So one belongs to the seeing, apprehensive recognition of the form, and the other immediately there, how this can be used in the setting which is here.
So that when you said about distinguishing seeing and hearing, that brought to mind synesthesia. I played piano for dance classes for many years, and it was often not any words spoken for hours. So the entire job involved seeing movement and literally a point where you could just hear what sounds needed to go with that movement. And I find, actually, I often have I'll see colors when I'm listening to music with my eyes closed, or I'll hear music coming from objects, you know. And
Yeah.
so as you're talking, I was looking, we have some carnations on the desk here. I'm looking at the red and white flowers, and it's I could sort of see that the experience of seeing is defining certain shapes at a distance. And I could see that as I start to feel the flowers come alive and a sense of sound and music emanating from it, it is like the flow and the relationship and the meaning of those forms. So there does seem to be something, I'm not sure, that's new for me.
Right. When we examine these four samjnana, jnana, vijnana, prajnana, they will be defining our seeing, hearing. There are more faculties. There is not only seeing and hearing. The seeing and hearing are more perceptive, whereas speaking, self-expressing, and thinking are more active. So in a way, it's quite amazing to think of then if I am listening to someone, I am becoming attentive, perceptive, but if I am speaking, I am expressing something from within myself. I am vibrating for others to hear, so to say. I'm generating the vibration others are perceiving. And when I'm listening to you, I'm becoming still, attentive, absorbing your vibration into myself, taking it into myself, recognizing it, how it vibrates in me, and understanding what you want or what you are in that moment of time, what your message is, yeah, to me or to others. This is in the hearing sense, but in the seeing sense, in a very similar manner, when I look at something and I want to see, I must concentrate consciousness on this shape, on that shape. I have to remove other shapes, as it were, and hold only this form for a while to fix it in consciousness. And then comprehensive cognition will follow, hearing will follow. It will start thinking, what is this form about? What it does to me, why it is here, what am I to do with it, how I am to interact, or what it does to other forms, and so on. All that goes beyond the immediate form. Yeah? But both are following one another, either way. You may get the word and then you get the vision, or the sound and then the light will follow, or you see the light and the meaning will follow of that light or that shape. So they are constantly, apprehensive, comprehensive cognition are actually interwoven into the activities of consciousness. They are simultaneous, as Sri Aurobindo says. But still, we have people who are more hearing and people who are more seeing. So what does it mean? There are people who are more visual and people who are more audio or tactile, people who are more perceiving through touch. We know about this in educational psychology. Yeah? There are three types of personalities, at least to the present knowledge, to the present set of tools we have here. Let us speak in that language. So, who are you? Are you visual, hearing, or touch?
I have a really good reference about the movie that I saw a while ago. I think it was a late 90s, early 200s with Val Kilmer. He was a protagonist of the movie. It calls At First Sight. It's actually was based on a true story of the man who was born blind and how he learned to see through the touch. And then he had an opportunity to find a surgeon who were willing to restore that retinal detachment. And suddenly on the late 30s, he had an ability to see and he could not understand anything. They were showing him a picture of the apple and then a true apple, and he was not able to differentiate them by sight until he touched them. The movie is extraordinary, how he learns by the expression, and he with somebody there, and there's a really nice, of course, drama on relationship. Just disregard that, just focus on that, scientific point. And he looks at her and is like, what's that face? I don't know what that face means. What is that expression? What do you feel? What do you want me to say? It's unbelievable. So you see how what we right now, it's what we learn from since childhood by repetition. It's a combination of things, and behind all this, as you mentioned, is that amazing privilege of have mind that develops and teaches us and kind of, and again, it's all fraction, as you mentioned, because we're here to figure out, and everybody has the truth, and we just wanted to line up on that. But if you go to that primitive us to develop, how we develop, this is all that what we perceive, receive, education, basis, everything that we are. It's what comes from that.
Beautiful. Yeah. What you explained, that to know what it means is a very different thing than to see the light. So to know what it means is exactly that comprehensive faculty of hearing, which is developed from the womb in the womb of the mother. We already hear. We already relate through hearing what is happening there. With closed eyes, we don't see a thing, but we already relate to the feelings, to the emotions through the sound, through relations. Or somebody is angrily speaking, we know it, we feel it. Mother feels it, she shrinks, we feel shrinking in the womb of the mother because of the voice. We learn already all those meaningful, comprehensive relations, and then we come out and we open our eyes. And then we see these shapes. Yeah? These shapes also correspond to those vibrations, those sounds, those voices. They start matching slowly. We match them. Over time, they match more and more and more, and then we become intuitive even. We feel what person feels without even expressing outwardly. This is amazing, the process of the faculties. Thank you for sharing.
It reminds me what Dolores told us. Two things. One, when Helen Keller was born both blind and deaf, I know people know that famous moment when her teacher put her hand underwater and traced the words water on her hand, and she said that she came into existence. She described herself before that moment as a phantom, like she almost didn't exist. Somehow when the meaning of water and the meaning of everything came together, suddenly she existed. And the At First Sight movie reminds me, Oliver Sacks is a neurologist. He tells the story of a man named Virgil who was blind at age 6. And it's important, he had some imagery in his memory. At 47, he had an operation to restore his sight. So the first experience, he opened his eyes, it was this massive blur. And finally, oh, that was the surgeon. He didn't know. He described at home, he kept getting confused by stairs because he would see that he didn't know 3 dimensions. He didn't realize that they went off. He said they just went up. And when his dog would turn directions, it was like he didn't realize it was the same dog. he didn't have that sense that, oh, it's the same thing turning directions. And he said he spent hours learning to see his fireplace, chairs, and he kept losing it for weeks and months. There was this conscious process of recovering meaning. It's so wonderful.
Amazing. I saw some movies. I even made the whole collection. We can even share this. How people start for the first time hearing or for the first time seeing colors. You would see the person who never was colorblinded, and when he was already like 60, in his 60s, they gave him the glasses, which give you the color perception. He was crying there. He said, "It's an amazing world, He says, like 3 dimensions. It seems that colors give us the sense of 3 dimensions. If it is black and white, you don't have that totally sense of 3 dimensions. You do not easily distinction the space, the depth of space, it seems. And when the child for the first time hears, they are born deaf, and they made them special, these earrings, so they start hearing the mother's voice for the first time, hearing the baby. You have to see that face. Oh, so excited, that voice, and mother is in tears. She cannot take it, because this surprise, how much is in hearing, and the person who is like 16 years old for the first time, girl, gets her hearing aid. And she is surprised. This is my voice. She doesn't know how she sounded. This is how I sound. You have to see these movies. Really, it makes much more sense of what this operation, even on the physical level, because these faculties operate in the vital level and mental level. They are there. The senses are not only outside, they are also inside. So the blind person sees things, inside. With closed eyes, we see things, and not only imprints of the outer being, but also the inner realities. They are there. And also inner sounds are there. Inner words, inner relations, inner comprehension. Everything is working within, but not without.
How much of this do we really see and do we really hear as is? Right? That is an inquiry of ours. A few years ago, Teresa and I were in the Institute for Machine and Human Cognition. And we were in the laboratory of the scientists that developed this, but they took a camera, mounted it on a headband, and tapped it into the tissue on the stomach just with electrodes, and from the electrodes clipped onto the tongue, which goes to the brainstem, and they could restore sight in everyone that had been blind for less than 7 years. Because what was happening, the memory of the images were still there, and they were capturing the visual stimulation in the stomach, the skin, translates it electrically to the brain, and then it fires off those memories. And as amazing that is, it gets into, well, how much, when I look outside right now, and how much am I not seeing because I've got this story unconscious in my neuroplastic wiring within my brain, and that for me is a real interest that I have in exploring and reverse engineering and deconstructing the faculties, because I've got a place now that I can actually work in. How can I do that without psilocybin, right? Or how can I do that without years of meditation? How can I do that right now simply by becoming self-aware of something that I was not aware of 10 minutes ago in this conversation? So I'm loving this. Thank you.
It's amazing that Sri Aurobindo says that actually, though our surface mind, so to say, does not attend to everything and does not focus on, because our mind is a focal point which directs all the activities of consciousness towards one subject or object. So if we have selective hearing, selective seeing, selective thinking. So we select what is suiting us, as Yajnavalkya would say. It is not by the eye that you see, but by the mind. It's not by the ear that you hear, but by the mind. Why? Because the mind is that particular faculty which focuses consciousness, and then all those faculties of cognition, comprehension, they know where to go to move and where to work on what to work. Yeah? So if I'm looking at this lamp, I'm thinking lamp, I'm thinking light, I'm thinking it's not switched on. So all that comes together with my focusing on a particular object. And in that moment, I'm not thinking philosophy or Upanishads or anything of the kind. Then I shift away the mind inside, focus on some concept or some vision, and then I'm there. And then I don't see the lamp, though it is in front of me. So the mind is focusing the faculties wherever it has to go. But it is the surface mind again. And Sri Aurobindo says the inner mind, the deeper mind, is constantly attending to everything what is happening. And under the particular kind of hypnosis, it can reveal all the secrets, what it attended to, that there was a noise there was a phone call somewhere far away, everything was there, and it attended, stored, and captures everything and keeps it, and it can reveal all that which it attended to in a precision which is the most miraculous. And he gives examples in the Kena Upanishad about the servant girl who is cleaning in the room of her master, and her master is reading some Hebrew text, which she does not know Hebrew and would never even hear what he is there reading. But if you take her and put her under hypnosis, she would reveal all the text precisely as it was recited, with the distinction of each word and each pronunciation, because her deeper mind or deeper consciousness attended to it. It always attends. It never loses the track.
There's an interesting parapsychology experiment where they put someone, there's some like a flower, that's actually nothing on the desk. They put a big box in front of them, then they put a plant there. And under hypnosis, they said, we're now removing the box. What's behind it? And she could say what was behind it. The box was still there, but under hypnosis, it touched the inner mind, and the inner mind could then see what was behind it. I also was thinking about speaking, that we take for granted that we know what people mean when they speak, but I've worked with autistic individuals, and if you say, oh, I'm just falling apart today, they'll say, well, no, your head's in place, your arms haven't, what do you mean you're falling apart? They have no idea what that means. And just one more thing quickly, they also don't understand social emotional cues we take for granted. You know, Vladimir is smiling now, that means something, right? This music therapist took this 10-year-old girl, she had never hugged anybody, never related, smiled at her mother. And at the beginning of the session, she would hide in the corner and he would just play music. After a few weeks, she would take a tambourine and kind of like make some sounds with it. And about the third month, well, she started dancing and jumping around. And then the third month, she sat down on the piano, and she never would get close to people. She sat down on the bench and started playing some music, just banging on the piano. Well, her mother said she went home that day, put some music on the stereo, walked over and hugged her mother. It was the first time in 10 years the girl had ever, and the mother just was just sobbing. So, like, I can relate to her. And the hearing and the seeing and the movement all brought together a sense of meaning.
Mm-hmm. So what is the difference then between seeing and hearing? That was the major. These are two different faculties of consciousness, and seeing also can be more comprehensive in a way, and hearing can be more apprehensive. When we hear sounds without understanding what they are, is more seeing in the hearing, let us say. I'm deconstructing now, so don't take me in the physical sense. I'm looking into the psychological sense of these faculties, yes, what they really bring, which is unique. So one brings the apprehensive cognition, so it fixes consciousness on the shape, on the form, on something separate from others, some particular event, some particular sound. If I hear a particular sound, then I am seeing the sound, as it were, though I am hearing, but the faculty is of shaping it out, you see. I'm cutting it out. I'm focusing on this particular shape of the sound. So, and if I'm comprehending the picture, I'm more hearing. Yeah? So you see, I've kind of made something else out of it. But these are the inner functions of the faculties which determine everything else. So they're mixed, and that's why we cannot really totally distinguish them. Yeah? Does it make sense? Well, maybe I just went ahead. I wanted you to arrive at this, but most probably it will be understood after this kind of exercise, what we did. I'm very glad that you shared your views, and they were all very, very important. I can put them on the list. We can make the whole list of the distinctions, and they will be all meaningful. You will see at the end that they all match one particular sense of how the consciousness acts through these faculties. In the Upanishads, as I mentioned before, these 6 faculties are mentioned, major faculties. There are more, but the major 6 are constantly operated upon, so that they view the consciousness not through some kind of abstraction or some kind of witness, or even witness is a seeing consciousness. Yeah? Witnessing means seeing. Yeah? Attending through apprehensive cognition. So this is another word for seeing. So I'm deconstructing them in such a way that apprehensive cognition or attention, or let us say witnessing, is seeing. Hearing is more comprehensive cognition. Understanding how this or that form relates to this or that form and what it can do. The one example I always give is if you see the face, you see it directly, as in Russian they say, better to see once than to hear 100 times. So what does it mean, better to see once than to hear 100 times? It means seeing is already direct evidence of the truth. Yeah? You see the form, it's already formed. It is satyena uttabhita bhumi. Yes, the earth is supported by the truth. It's already a truth. Seeing is the truth. It's a direct revelation of the truth, the face. You see the face of the person. What else do you want? You already have a total contact. But the person is behind the glass, thick glass, and you don't hear the person. It tries to tell you something and you don't hear it. You don't understand unless you read the lips with the eye. Again, you will read, you will see and recapture the comprehension. But the person wants the glass of water, very thirsty, and you don't understand because you don't hear. And water is not in the room. So you have to go elsewhere to bring the water and to give the person. So this is the hearing. Hearing goes far beyond the immediate form. It expresses the intention or the need which is not there. It wants to bring other forms, other beings into action which are not there immediately available. So, and that's how comprehension works. You know? So when I look at this bottle or this or the glasses, I was giving you the example, whatever the form, what do I see? I see some form. Even the form is this square or whatever, rectangular, is a word which tells me what it is to my hand related, that it is gray is the word. That means it is not red. It's different from the red. It is a seeing, but what it tells me that it is the phone, I do not know what it is the phone, but I know that it is the phone by comprehension. Because I was using it as a phone. I can call, I can send messages, I can talk, I can see the videos. So I can do many with this thing, though it is only one thing. But I don't see all those operations yet, but I know about them, and this is comprehension. So through the words, through the language, through the comprehensive cognition, how this object can relate to other objects, I figure out what it means. There is another very good example, which when you come to some museum, for example, and you enter into some palace where the king lived or some, and you see all those instruments of whatever he was operating, or in the kitchen, or his weapons, and you look at it and you know nothing because you don't know who lived there, when it was, what it meant for him, what it meant for others. And then the guide comes and tells you there was a king in 16th century, his name was this was his clothes, this was his weapon, he got his weapon from his father, and everything starts being alive. It is filled with meaning. Otherwise, it's a meaningless objects, or you can relate them into your system of meanings, of course. You can do that, and we do it automatically. Yeah? But it is not the meaning of those objects, not the life atmosphere in which he lived. So this is, I want us to think of these two major faculties. And then I want to come to touch and figure out what touch is. And then on this, we will build everything else. On these three, we will build how consciousness functions. So what is touch, actually, when you touch? What is going
Vladimir,
on?
can I ask really quickly?
Yes.
So when you mentioned you go into a museum or a palace and you see all these things until the guide comes, you don't know for sure what happened. But what about places that have vibrations where you can feel what happened there? How where would you put those? Like you go into some place and oh, this was, don't they carry memories of those vibrations?
They do.
Right.
But on the surface mind, we don't see it immediately. We don't really realize. We need a help. We need a push from the surface mind. And then we start feeling more vibrations from the objects and so on. We are more tuned to apprehensively tuned. Our consciousness is apprehensively focused, so it can focus properly all the comprehensive faculties now and feel it and know it better. Mother did this. She needed only a photo. That means apprehensive. And she took the photo, she concentrated, and she went deeply into this comprehension. She found the meaning of all those relations in the subtle world of this person, and she experienced them in herself, and then she could make a conclusion that this person better not to come to ashram because this person will be very sick. Or better come to ashram and to start yoga immediately. So, because she experienced it through herself, there's comprehension, she could could follow the apprehension. Sometimes we have this also many times. If you look at any object, you will see a delay in comprehension. Just shift your sight to any object, and it's like like half a second it takes to focus on it, like a little out of focus to focus, and then comprehension follows what it is. First you see and then comprehension. First you see and then comprehension. So comprehension is always delayed, as it were. Maybe this is also something interesting in Nietzsche's metaphor. If you look into how we build understanding of the world, what we are dealing with, the metaphor of Nietzsche, he speaks about two major metaphors. Yes, and this is that delay in comprehension, delay in building up our relations with the object we see, we perceive. So there is delay in perception. We have to build the form in our mind, and then we deal with that form. So we don't deal with the object, we deal with the form which we perceived and comprehended in our mind. We build the metaphor in our mind with which we deal, and that is our corresponding reality. Linguistic reality corresponds to the real reality, as it were. We impose one on the other.
I was saying in the previous session, the science session, that scientists have tested meditators, and they find that the longer they meditate, the more easily they can see this process of building up, because their attention is so sharp, they can actually see, like Vladimir just mentioned, that half second. Many people can't focus to realize, well, it's just there, you know. But when you sort of slow down, I was thinking, how do I say your name? Is it Viranjini? Is that right?
You
Viru.
can call me Viru, yeah.
Viru, okay. When you talked about vibrations, it's like it feels like that's touch. It's like the capacity of consciousness to touch, whether it's through seeing, you know, you can see, and you open up and you literally like touch the vibrations of something. Feels like
very, very interesting. So it's to the point of the touch. What is touch? When we touch, what is happening really?
You're feeling something?
Good, we are feeling something. And there's something else.
We're making contact with the physical world.
Absolutely. These two are there. There is a contact, you feel there is something else. First, that's apprehensive cognition, and you feel how it relates to you, and that is comprehensive. So hearing and seeing are again here in the touch, both of them. That's why Sri Aurobindo says these are two major fundamental faculties of consciousness: seeing the form and knowing the meaning of it, how it relates to other forms. And the touch is that activity which holds both. The difference, by the way, we have that difference in the seeing, and that's why, well, tactile people are very different. Most probably Dawn can say more about this. From they are specifically different children. Yeah, in the educational psychology, you know about them. They need to touch. Yeah, they need to put few squares. 2 cubes plus 2 cubes. If you touch 4 cubes, you know what is 4. So it's not enough to tell you that 2 plus 2 is 4, and like hearing, you are not enough even to write on the board 2 plus 2 equals 4. You have to have 4 cubes to touch, and then you know what is 4. It's amazing. Just look at these 3 options. For one person is enough to say, for other person is enough to write, and for the third person, the 4 objects are required. For kids, I'm speaking about kids. Of course, human beings already managed to go through that. These are primitive things, but they are important for us because we want to understand the fundamentals of the faculties, because we will use them in our approaches to knowledge. So there are different approaches. There is more objective approach to see things as such, to know them as they are. There is another approach which is more to feel them, to know them through your psychological knowledge by identity, so to say, to bring them in bringing apprehensive cognition. When you identify this, how you know what it is, you know it by identifying with yourself, and through yourself you know it, so to say, by experience, as it were, experiencing it within yourself. And that is the samjnana, what we spoke about. And then comprehensive cognition, how this object relates to me and to others and to all the other objects, and how they relate to this object in a meaningful fashion, what it can do. And then my comprehensive action upon it as my will. I will to take it, to open it, to drink, and to put it back. This is my wish to deal with this object in that particular, violating its own identity, integrity, equilibrity, and so on. So I go and disturb the equilibrium of this bottle standing on the table, take it away from that place and put it to some other place. So this is the will I attach to it, and this is the word. When I express my wish, that face behind the glass wanting the glass of water, I express something which is not there, and I violate the established equilibrium by that. And then finally, that is it, yeah? Was it there something else? Yes, no, nothing. So I perceive this object as such, separately from me. I perceive it as myself, because otherwise I will not be able to focus consciousness on it. Yeah. The moment I attend to this object or to any other object, I fix it myself with it. And this is the fixation I make, because otherwise consciousness cannot operate. And finally, this is the mind, the knowing by identity. And finally, two more, comprehensive vijnana and comprehensive self-expression, ajnana, action, logos. So if these four are simultaneous, and these are the four major faculties, so these four are actually two, seeing and hearing, seeing and hearing in active and perceptive sense. Yes. So in active sense it is speaking, in active sense it is thinking, in a perceptive sense it is seeing and hearing. Then there is one more level of touch, and touch is manifestation knowledge. If first we can call as self-knowledge, second as relation knowledge, how we relate, how things relate, and the last one is the manifestation knowledge, how things are being manifested. Because in the touch there are both seeing and hearing. I know how it relates, and I feel it different from me. So both of them are there. So this is the Upanishadic vision of the faculties. I hope it is not too much. I can show you the whole scheme.
Beautiful home.
Oh, my water bottle's in.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Right, thank you. It was a little brief and very fast because we have to end our session in 2 minutes. So maybe what I wanted to do next time, and to project these into the approaches to knowledge. So how would you distinguish, let us start with a question, between psychological and philosophical approach to knowledge? What is psychological and what is philosophical? Is there a difference? There is a difference, yeah?
Maybe a very subtle,
Can't hear.
maybe a very subtle difference.
Subtle, definitely. Or between linguistic and historical or sociological approach, or between the linguistic and philosophical, or between artistic and scientific. Today we were trying to define, and I was mentioning the scientific approach to knowledge is a search for what it is as such without me modifying it. I want to
Very
know.
nice home.
And I love this. It's so beautiful.
Somebody is talking, yeah? So these approaches we will deal next time because they correspond to our major faculties. And once we see them, we will see that all our humanities, which we are kind of know as domains like psychology, philosophy, linguistics, or philology, let us say, sociology, history, and sociology, history is one in my view, and art and culture and science. These are the well-defined approaches of knowledge, to knowledge rather, through our faculties, and the domination of one faculty over the others. This is something interesting. So the major approach to knowledge is psychological, without which nothing can be done. If the psychological is not there, there is nothing to know. This is the driving approach. Then it turns to be philosophical because we want to see how this psychological truth is relevant and meaningful in the vaster picture. Outside, objectively, self-knowledge objectivized, as it were. If I objectivize self-knowledge, I become a philosopher. Interesting, eh? So I am psychologist who, and you will notice that Hegel, Kant, whoever, you just start reading them and you will see that they start with psychological premises, always. And then they look how it is really in the world. Is it really the same way? And they find, oh, it is the same way in the world. And that's philosophy. So psychological self-knowledge or subjective self-knowledge objectivized or put into master context. These are two major approaches. And then linguistic and sociological, relational knowledge, how I express myself subjectively, how I communicate myself, my inner needs, my search for the truth, my perception of or discoveries or knowledge or whatever. Self-expression of consciousness is the word. So we deconstruct the word. We don't look at the word as speaking word. It's any expression. Facial, as you beautifully today said, what that face is telling me, what does it really mean? So it is that linguistic approach. What does it tell me by smiling? It tells me by smiling something, or not smiling. It also tells me something. So, or being silent, it tells me something. The telling, the speaking, the self-expression is constantly present through many languages. Body language, gesture language, speech, and so on. And finally, this communication is done in the social setting, where social organism is meaningfully connected through particular rules, particular understanding of communication, of calendar, of kind of common gatherings. Through calendar is the best way to lay out on the scale of time. And then we come to the two major faculties of touch and feeling and touch. And these are two major communication or manifestation knowledge faculties. Yeah. So to manifest anything what we perceived and expressed into the form of existence, culture, or even object, outer object, we need to apply the vital force. We have to charge it with the living energy, feeling. We have to feel it, to charge it with this volitional or power of being, that it would exist beyond our creation, beyond us. So we create it and let it be. We let it live separately from us. And this is the artistic expression. Music is created like this, and it lives beyond musician. It is the art, it is the whole culture, architecture, civilization is made in that way. And finally, nature, the objects, they live by themselves objectively, and that is scientific approach. Touch, we can touch it, it's real, it's separately existing. So this is the vision of these faculties and the disciplines behind them, or approaches to knowledge rather. So there is artistic approach to knowledge, there is scientific approach to knowledge, to know thing as it is. I want to know it, anything. Makes sense? Or it is too much? I always wanted to communicate this because this was my greatest discovery of my life, these approaches to knowledge behind the faculties. I was always thinking why and how that we have these limited disciplines in humanities. Why do we have history or sociology? Why do we have linguistics or psychology or philosophy? What do they really mean? And then I saw, there's approaches here. It's a particular, separate, different approach. And then I discovered that behind them there are faculties which support these approaches in their dominating way. So seeing will be more philosophical. Seeing as such is a philosophy. What is your vision? What is your philosophy? We always ask. How do you see things? Tell me. Then I have to know your metaphysical picture of the world. How you see things relate. What is your mosaic of the world? How you relate all the selves into one bigger self. This is the philosophy. And so on. So you see, I deconstructed first the faculties, then the domains. Now we don't speak about domains, we speak about the approaches to knowledge. So I don't speak about philosophy as a domain. I speak about philosophical approach to knowledge. So I don't want to be a philosophy professor. I want to be a philosopher. I don't want to be a kind of teacher of psychology. I want to be a psychologist, an artist, sociologist, scientist. And so if we learn about these approaches, we will see how rich our consciousness is, and we will never mix them up. So if somebody speaks to me psychologically, I would not jump on him with my philosophical arguments, what people usually do. All misunderstandings are built on this, that we do not recognize the approaches. So somebody wants to express some historical truth, and I'm jumping on him with my psychological understanding, and that is absolutely like this. And we don't have a point where we come together even. So we can tune our consciousness to each other and understand each other much better. So consciousness is complex. It's a complex reality. It's not only some witness or awareness. Awareness is important, but it is much more complex in activities, and we have to learn about this. All right, this is basically another kind of attempt to approach this complex issue. All right, so we have no time. I took more time than, sorry for this, it's more than an hour. more than 1.5 hours, yes, again. But I look at your smiling faces, and so I'm kind of all right with that. Faces are also telling you something. Yes, as Don said, when Vladimir is smiling, that is telling me something.
Absolutely, Vladimir. And also by just the resonance, as you mentioned, how complex is this consciousness, and how we're different in our journeys. But when we unify in this knowledge, we kind of come close to that expression. And so different, so amazing also that you and Don and Jen, also you were mentioning about the subconscious mind and how we can see beyond and how you can hear without registering, but it's all registered by the same kind of a resonance. Maybe we can just put Mother Savitri at night and it just kind of played to us and we just can sleep and be just completely involved even without, need to read it, and it's already there. So anyway, just a suggestion.
Yeah, our deeper mind may get it. I was always joking because I lived in Korea for 6 months and I lived with people who were very religious. I remember this lady trying to read the Bible very fast because she had to do it for the church to show that how many times she read the Bible through. So she was putting the tape recorder and putting it fast forward, and it was like, and I was first wondering what's she doing, and then she told me that she's listening to the Bible, fast forward. But I was kind of making fun of it. But now, knowing that the deeper mind attends anyhow, I may slap myself. Bad, Vladimir. Thinking not correct about the lady. So she did learn something. Subconsciously, of course. But it will pop up one day or another. Great. Wonderful. So we will close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santo Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Namaste. See you. Bye.